Hello, everybody. You're watching the Mike Nelson Show. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure to subscribe right now. I'm here with a pretty cool guest. I'm here with Sonny Gullage. How you today, Sonny?
I'm all right, man. Thanks for having me here, Mike.
Yeah. So when did your musical journey kind of kick off? When did you start listening to music? What when did that whole start for you?
Well, I was very blessed. I'm from New Orleans, and I was born into a musical family, which in New Orleans really means a lot. So I think I was from the moment from the moment I came into this world, music was always around me. And at about 6 years old, I started to comprehend it as a musician rather than just a kid who liked to listen to it. So I think about 6 years old, I was in kindergarten and my teacher taught us music notes in terms of what a quarter note was, an eighth note, a half note, a whole note. And I took to it. My father's a professional musician as well. So that was something that I always gravitated to because of that. So next thing I know, I was laying on my stomach writing, writing music notes and just writing my own rhythm patterns. And from there on, it really became a landslide of just always being involved in music, always listening to good stuff, always taking in music as much as I could.
Now, you say you were writing music at a young age. What instruments did you play when you started out? What did you kind of play a little bit of everything, or what was the first instrument you played on?
Well, my dad's a bass player. And because of that, I wanted to be like my dad. I saw him always going around the world traveling. I wanted to be a bass player. So I started playing bass and I took to it well. I like it was something that I understood. I was like, oh, this is the low end of the band. This is
Yeah.
and then as I grew up, the guitar players started looking really cool. So I was like, oh, I want to be like the guitar players. So I started playing guitar.
Whole different
And
world,
then
though,
as you get
right?
a little older, you start
Yeah.
wanting noise. So you're like, I want to make a lot of noise. I want to be loud. The drummer does that. So started playing drums. Then I had to pick an instrument for fifth grade band. And I was like, I want to be the coolest one on stage. Saxophone. So it was always like there's always some weird reason that would lead me to learn an instrument. But when I was about 12 years old, piano clicked. I mean, my fingers, it felt like my fingers finally knew what they were doing, and I felt very aware of what I was doing.
When did you start singing though? Was it around that same time?
Singing, I was born into a musical family.
Yeah.
So singing was always there. Singing was always a part of it, if I can say it like that. It was if you weren't if you weren't making instrumental music, if you weren't sitting there playing an instrument and really digging in, you were singing still. You were with your family. We were sitting around a table and just singing old gospel songs. So I was always singing. It's just the older I got, the more I understood how to do it right. I wasn't I wasn't, oh man, I want to riff everywhere. I wasn't doing that. I started singing like, okay, this is what it means to sing. This is what it means to sing and be soulful. This is what it means to perform while you're singing. So that sort of just developed as well over time. Just always something that was there, even if I was singing to myself. But from a young age, singing, we were always doing it. And I didn't start singing and playing professionally until I was about 15. so
Hmm.
so that was a culture shock. So
Now,
yeah,
when did your love for the blues kind of start? Was it really young then when you started liking the blues, or were you into a different kind of music when you were young? Or
funny enough, I can tell you, I the blues was always around. I mean, my father played for so many great blues musicians. He played for Henry Butler. He played for Vashti Jackson and so many more. And I thought those were the cool guys. Some people like Power Rangers. I was a fan of the blues musicians. And one year, I remember for Christmas, and this is a recent memory that I somehow unlocked, I guess. I remember one year for Christmas, my father got me one of those old, the CD players that we
yeah,
used to have.
for sure.
You put your CD in and you walk
Yeah,
around with it with the little, yeah.
yeah. And then it would
And I
skip, and you would
remember
miss the next song. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. It just
yeah,
it it was a flawed system, but it
Yeah.
worked.
Yeah.
And I remember I got I got a blues CD with that for Christmas. And one of those and two of those songs. One was American Woman. It was the Lenny Kravitz version. So,
Yeah.
you could very much argue that it was blues.
Yeah.
And then Stevie Ray Vaughan, Pride and Joy was the other one. And those two tracks, I can't tell you a single other track besides those two on that CD, but those were the ones that I always back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then I always saw the blues musicians come in and play the same kind of music, the same style, the same rock and blues feel. And I fell in love with it back then. And then I started going to piano lessons and learning classical music. And then I started playing jazz music. But in college, somehow I ended up back at BB King's Blues Club in New Orleans.
Wow.
And I was playing blues 3 nights a week. And it was like, huh. It felt at the time out of nowhere. But as I got older, I was like, wow, this is a really full circle type of thing, isn't it? From the top of it to the bottom, I was back in blues. So the blues had been there for so long, and I thought that it was something new for me until I remembered. I was like, no, this is something that was always there for me.
Now let's go
So
back a little bit in
yeah,
your bio. I saw that you wrote a pretty special song when you were 12 years old about the BP oil. Can you talk a little bit about that?
yeah. Oh yeah, I remember it. I mean, I remember when I was sitting at this very piano when I wrote it. Uh, maybe 12 years old, maybe a little younger. But I remember all the pain and all the problems of that time that came from it. Being grown up on the river, you you knew a lot of people. You had friends whose families were affected by this, whose whole livelihoods just went to nothing, just went away. And I remember I I was always a very poetic kid. So I said, take the oil from the river and make it pure like the white driven snow. I'm from New Orleans. We don't have white driven, but just the idea of it. And then said, take the oil from the river, let all of New Orleans know. And it was something that came from my heart. And even now with the blues, that's really what the blues means to me. It's music that's talking about life, not just the sad parts, but it's the parts that you live, you feel. So that song. I think might have been my first time writing a blues song in any way, shape, or form.
Now, I also saw in your bio that you're an old soul. Can you elaborate more about on that? I mean, I'm an old soul too. I like old stuff. I got a bunch of records you can see behind me, and talk to me a
Yeah,
little bit more
man.
about in your life how that applies to you.
Well, man, it's my whole I think my whole way of living in terms of mindset and everything. I love playing music. I love doing this, and I also do other things. I have my own hobbies. I go out. I'm an outdoorsman. I fish. I like to I fish. I have a garden that is quite beautiful, and I like to grow my own food. I like to get things as far back to a traditional feeling. The new things never fascinated me. I wasn't much of a get a new phone kid. I wasn't the kid who was like, I was like, what do you want for Christmas? Guitar, a new one, a new different one. and
Yeah.
I was never into this newer thing. So in growing in the blues, it was more of the same. It was something that was classic for me. It's like when you see an old classic car. Neither of us were around
No.
when they had those the true classic cars from the
No.
'60s. That but those have some weird form of nostalgia to it, and I think that sort of is a motif in my life where I I care about these classic things, and I care about the traditional things. I'm very much a simple not in terms of thought, but I mean in terms of like being. I love the simple life, and that a lot of people say, oh, that makes you an old soul. And if that's the case, I guess it does. But it's just how I prefer to be. And even in the way I perform music. Music used to be sung from right here,
Yeah.
from right here and right here down here, just soul. It was heart and soul. That's it. That's all you had.
No
You
auto
didn't
tune,
think
right?
technique. Yeah, you didn't think technique. You didn't think, oh well, they'll catch it in the after mix. You didn't think any of that kind of stuff. You just did it. And when I get on stage, that's the same thing. And leave it all on the stage and just pump, just push, and let the world let the world hear you for who you are, not for what they can imagine you could be. So I think that might also feed into the notion of being an old soul.
Now, talk to me a little bit about, the challenges as a young artist. I've interviewed quite a bit of people around our age, and how, social media and all that world is so ingrained in the music business. Talk to me about the challenges that you face, that maybe, previous generations didn't face when it was just more about the music. Now it's more about other aspects. Talk to me about that and what you think about that.
And this is where it also comes in, I guess. But uh, you know, social media is great in terms of it's a form of promotion. It's a form of getting your name and your who you are out there a lot easier than it used to be in a lot of people's opinion. But there's a falsity that comes with modern day social media, if I'm honest, where people believe that social media is the key to success. I I disagree heavily with that. It's the idea of being just quite actually someone who cares about being good instead of the image of being good. I tell a lot of people, especially people around our age, I tell people, hey, don't fall for the trick. It's not, this isn't, I've been in many positions where people have seen me and seen my face, and I can tell you the times that made my career matter more were the times where it wasn't social media. It was I affected someone's life somehow by playing in person, by being on a stage where, BB King's Blues Club that had everybody who would come through. BB King's drummer would come through and talk to us sometimes, and you'd have old blues musicians. You had this cat Norman Boogie Cat Sylvester. You had people who'd been in love with the blues their whole life. You had the owner of the place, Tommy Peters. He was on the road with BB so much. That's where becoming an artist really gets important. So the idea of social media playing a major hand in it, I think that's a boundary that we as young artists have set for ourselves now because we get so focused on, hey, how many likes does this have? This has how many views instead of worrying about, okay, as many people as they might like this, they might not like this tomorrow. Well, I on my social media, it's scarce. Let's be honest, it's scarce. I post the things that come out. I post the new things that are happening, and sometimes I'll post where I'm playing just to say, "Hey, I'm here. Everyone who's here and everyone who cares, I'm here." But in terms of what will lead you to success, it's that moment that your foot touches the stage. It's that moment that you get up there. It's that moment that it's not that moment that your foot touches the stage and someone sees it and someone sees it, records it, and puts it on social. No, I have there are videos of myself and the Blues Groovers that have hundreds of thousands of views and honestly made no difference in our booking, made no difference in our listeners. But every time we got on stage and every time we get on stage to this day, we can trust, okay, we're going to have more listeners from this live show that out of all the people who might see it on social media, this group of people who were here to see it actually sees. So I think social media ends up being more of a setback for a lot of people because they worry about the wrong parts of social media.
So I guess for you,
That's my take.
yeah, for you, the most important thing, or not the most important thing, but an important aspect of your career is for sure your live show. Then that's something you take very serious.
Oh yeah. I mean, I mean, live show, also the records, making music that people can go home and listen to is important.
Yeah.
But yeah, those live shows. Uh, I grow once again growing up in New Orleans, you learn a certain way. In New Orleans, there's music absolutely everywhere. Every corner, every turn, you're going to see a great musician somewhere. So if that's the case, that's where you're truly competing. These are the guys who get called, and you don't know that these guys are getting called for these things, but they are. So live show matters in terms of like, hey, you're leaving an impact on people. We had people who come to see us 4 or 5 times a year. Every time they came to New Orleans, and we there was a couple who came to see us in Austria just because we were playing in Austria, and they lived in Germany. They drove from Germany all the way to Innsbruck, Austria, just to come see us and hear us. That's a
Wow.
special feeling. That means that you're leaving an impact. Well, how are you leaving an impact? From the live shows. Because I just being recently signed to Blind Pig, that changes things. We were independent for the entirety of my career, pretty much, and then we got signed, and that changed things. Now people are saying, well, yeah, due to Blind Pig, we hear this, and but the people who are following us and loving us, that's from the live show and the impact that we left there. So that's why the live show is a little bit more important in my eyes. Live performing is always gonna beat the the social media idea of what being an artist is.
Now, talk to me about your David album "Go Be Free." With Blind Pig. Talk to me about that.
Oh man, it's uh, it's a very humbling experience to say the least. I this album. So I released my debut EP when I was about 17 or 18, something like that, and released it independent. Had 5 songs. Then I added 5 more songs, and they were a lot of them were blues arrangements, and that was the first album from Kevin Gullage and the Blues Groups. This is my debut Sonny Gullage album, and most of these songs are originals, which is a very vulnerable place to be in as a musician. You're putting a lot of who you truly are into the world, and you're hoping that people like it. So so I was when we were writing these songs, and I was very blessed. They matched me up with someone like Tom Hambridge to co-write and learn from. When you're writing these songs, it's it's scary almost because you're like, okay, I hope nobody gets offended by this line. I hope people like this line. I hope someone resonates with this, and then you realize, well, the best you can do is hope and just hope that everything goes well. So with the entire album, I decided to say, hey, let me let me tell everyone who I am. Let me explain to everyone who I am. Just that's it. So starting with Go Be Free. Go Be Free is quite actually my story, the song itself. I was born in a small town and raised around New Orleans. And I remember my father telling me, hey Kevin, if you want to be as happy as me, as free as me, learn to be easy. Go be free. Then they went to school, and I paid attention, but I was more focused on music. So Kevin, what do you want to be when you grow up? Oh, I'm not going to worry about tomorrow like that. I'm about to worry about 3 minutes from now at 3:30. I'm going to go and live my life and live. And it kept going. And then a song like "Worried About the Young," I expressed how I feel about the world around me. And when we were doing "I've Been There," I was thinking of my grandfather. I was trying to express as much of who Kevin Sonny Gullage is in this album. And that's like I said, that's a little terrifying because I'm happy that people are liking songs thus far and really relating to them. But it's nerve wracking.
Yeah, I can
It's
imagine.
exciting,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's exciting, but it is nerve-wracking because you want everything to go so well, but you want to still be authentically yourself. And oh, you just get jitters just thinking about it.
Now, what about for the rest of 2024? What else do you have planned in terms of maybe some shows you could promote or touring plans? Anything for the rest of the year?
Well, I have shows. I'm doing a lot more domestic traveling this year, which is a little bit newer for me in terms of I've done a lot of international traveling. I've been to Sao Paulo and Janeiro and Innsbruck and Honems uh, and Milan and all these places out of the country. Now I'm in America and I'm like, huh, there are so many places to play here and just trying to have fun with everybody and give everybody that experience of just, hey, we were there. We were all there having fun. Actually, I'm gearing up tomorrow. I have a show in North Louisiana, the Natchitoches Folk Festival. And then I'm going to Alberta, Canada. I'm going to Calgary and playing the Calgary Blues Festival with
Wow.
artists like DK Harrell and Kevin Burtz and Tony TC Coleman and so many more. And I have some shows coming in New Mexico and a few other places that I'm excited to be traveling to. So we're gearing up for another great touring season. And well, it's starting tomorrow,
Hmm.
and that's just like I always say, that's going to be a whole lot of fun.
Now, do you already have ideas for the next album, or is that going to be on the shelf until after the touring ends?
Oh well, huh? You are the first person to ask me about the next album. I am very pleased to say when you're writing an album, you don't know where the inspiration comes from. You don't know what's going to make you say, "Oh gosh, let me write this. I have an idea." When we finished writing the first album, which took us 2 days, I came back home and I started writing just because I was writing in a different way. I wanted to practice this new writing. And then when we finished recording the album, which took us 3 days, I went back home and I was still writing. I was like, man, this is a new experience. I've already started writing for the next album.
Wow,
And
that's crazy.
that's a fun place to be where you're like, man, I have some ideas that I want to walk into the studio with and spitball and workshop and make these into even better songs. So, you know, it just with it starting with fresh ideas, that makes a huge difference. So with the new album, yeah, I've already started working on it. Not sure when. I can't tell you when it's going to be coming, but I can tell you that this one is going to be coming on August 23rd, coming out from Blind Pig.
Now, this album that's going to be coming out in August, when did you exactly record this? What month did you make this? Was it the end of last year, early this year?
Oh, well, the beginning of this year. I think
Yeah,
we
this year.
recorded, yeah, it took us, like I said, it took us 3 days to record the entire thing. And it was in January, early January in
Okay.
Nashville. And we recorded it by February. We had some solid mixes of all the songs and then we got a special guest on it. And when our special guest recorded it by March, we had everything lined up and laid out, and we were ready to go. We were ready to rock and roll and blues groove, like we say. That was in the beginning of this year, and now after getting everything solidified and getting everything ready, we have we have vinyls, we have CDs, we have things that are ready to be moved, and that's also a very very good feeling.
Well, Sonny, I want to thank you for coming on the show today. It was great talking to you.
Man, Mike, thank you so much. This was a fun time.
Appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure to subscribe right now. Thanks for watching, everybody.